Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all for joining our session today. I'm very happy to see that we've got people from Europe and North America, which is a great news. Uh, well, 2020 wasn't the year that we really planned during the start of the year. I mean, most of the predictions that we made really has been challenged, to say the least, right? And having said that, I think we as human beings are very adaptable, and we are always looking at ways to protect ourselves and to make our business more resilient. It's also needless to say that we not only need to put a better emphasis on spend management today, but also we need to kind of be sensitive towards the broader ecosystem in general. On that note, our session for today really is about procurement beyond 2020. And we will talk about the challenges you're facing today with regards to the traditional procurement model. What are the insights on the evolving technology and the shifting priorities? All right. So my name is Pranav Kumar. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Inspirator Technologies. And I've got with me Suresh Chandrasekharan, who is the Chief Solution Architect at Renburke IT Consulting. In fact, I'm very proud to announce our partnership with Renburke, which is one of the leading global technology solutions provider based out of Germany, but having its operations across all the major markets. Merlin, in fact, is the name of their strategic sourcing tool, which is one of the game changers in my view. It's very innovative. It's a visionary approach towards strategic sourcing, and we will be talking a little bit about Merlin and how it can be solved for you. So in the next 45 minutes, we will cover the following. We will look at the challenges that is being faced today and what is the best ways to address the same. We'll also be looking at the difference between the strategic sourcing and the traditional procurement model. Okay. Thirdly, we look at digitization, the role it plays in terms of going forward in terms of procurement. We look at analytics, what role can it play in improvising the procurement, and finally we'll look at the solution itself, and how it's really helping solve customer issues with regards to procurement. Please feel free to post your questions, and we'll have Suresh answer those in the last 15 minutes of a session today. So without further ado, let's really get started. Hey Suresh, how's been your day so far?
Hey, Pranav, thanks for the introduction, and once again, good morning, good afternoon to all of you. And today, as Pranav said, we will be kind of talking about the challenges what we are facing, especially in the procurement supply chain area. See, if you look at it, actually, we are going through an unprecedented situation, right? It is not something which we are familiar with. It is not something which we have seen earlier. So as he rightly said, whatever plans we made in the beginning, it is not something which we are going to achieve. It is something which is very clear. But at the same time, there is a good news from certain industries, right? If you look at the medical supplies and some of those markets, actually, they are flourishing because they are doing really well. But the overall impact in the supply chain is multifold, right? If you look at it, actually, this is the first time we have an issue when it comes to the material shortage. This is when we have there is a shortage in demand for the manufacturers. There is a shortage in material for manufacturers to produce something. Actually, even if they produce it, how do they ship it to the market, right? And the next important thing is basically this is the first time they also had a workforce disruption, right? Because of the social distancing and all of the kind of things, people couldn't go and work together. People were not used to, especially at least in the market where we are, people were not used to working from home. It is not something which they are familiar with. So the challenges they had is basically in almost all areas. So typically every industry had a lot of challenge. And if you talk about industry by industry, there is a survey being done by National Association of Manufacturing, right? And they have done a survey, and almost 78.3% of the respondents surveyed, and they have said they are experiencing a negative financial impact, right? The overall P&L, what they have promised is not going to, the EBITDA promise is not going to meet, and especially the mid-market companies are facing a huge challenge. Those companies who have done investment in e-commerce and other areas were successful in certain areas, but they definitely have that challenge when it comes to overall achieving that. and almost 35.5% of the companies made it very clear that actually they had a clear supply chain disruption because of many things, right? The logistics disruption, the travel and tourism is completely got affected because people were not able to travel, right? The entire cargo industry got affected because the air cargo and other cargo facilities were not there, right? So overall, all areas had that impact, and people were really struggling when it comes to managing those things. And overall, I would say the challenge is not limited to one or two industries. It is across the industry, and we have experienced some issues in the past. Let's say that actually in 2011, Tohoku, right? It's a Japanese city where a lot of automotive auto parts manufacturing is happening. There was an earthquake, and we know that actually the entire automotive industry got affected because of the lack of auto parts. But that was in a pocket, right? And there were such pockets of incidents were happening earlier as well, the Ebola in Africa and some other issues in some other places. But I would say this is the first time something is happening across the globe actually after a long period of time, and it is not sparing not even a single industry. If you leave let's say medical supplies and something else other side, the entire pattern or the supplier behavior is got changed. Actually people were doing a panic buying. The complete, let's say, supermarkets, hypermarkets, shelves were getting emptied because people they were not aware of how to react to the situation or respond to the situation. That is the biggest challenge, right? Because if we have experienced this in the past, we know how to react or respond to the situation. But when it comes to first time we are facing something, we don't know how to react or respond to the situation. That is what another challenge what people had. So that is where almost all the industries, without sparing one or two, actually kind of generally there was a big issue, right?
Right. No, absolutely makes sense. This is very unprecedented. So do you think that we were really ready for facing these challenges? And how are people, in your experience, corporates struggling to keep up with the challenge, particularly from the procurement point of view, Suresh?
If you look at it actually, Pranav, as we all know, the organization who has survived this current or sailed through the kind of crisis, right? Those organizations where they had a strategy in terms of digital transformation, organization where they had an e-commerce strategy, were able to sell. People were sitting at home and ordering materials and services. Actually, those organizations were successful. So I would say that actually there were many organizations. The digital transformation was a strategy in their overall strategy, but some organization digital transformation was a wish list. I would say those organizations where they have invested in digital transformation was able to sail through the situation, but the other organization where they kept it as a wish list, they literally gone through a big trouble. So procurement is one area. I would say these days there is a huge shift in terms of the buyer behavior or organization. How do they treat the procurement as a function, right? Earlier, it was more of a cost center. Today, there is a clear target for each and every procurement function, not the buyer, in terms of savings, actually. So they put a savings target, measure the performance of each and every buyer. They look at how they can bring down the overall cost, efficiency, and productivity, right? We have to bear in mind one thing. The overall organizational strategy has gone through a complete shift. Earlier, it was all about growth and innovation. Now it is all about productivity and efficiency improvement. So that can be achieved only by having proper strategy in terms of digital transformation. And especially one of the low-hanging fruit is basically procurement. And that is one function where people have completely ignored in the earlier past, right? And this is when people have realized this is one area where I have to focus. And this is one area where I can get immediate return on investment.
Great, excellent. So basically, you talked about the challenges the industry is facing, and the role of digitization when it comes to procurement. Could you tell us at this point in time the difference between the traditional procurement and the strategic sourcing? What really is the difference between these two?
Hey, good question, Pranav. Actually, if you look at it, actually, traditional procurement, we know our behavior, right? The general traditional buyer's behavior. If you need something, we will go and float an RFQ, go and search, identify 10 suppliers, and go and say that actually who is going to give me the best price. and I just go and buy it, right? And I don't have a benchmark price to negotiate and get the better price actually. That is what the traditional procurement is. It's more of need-based rather than a strategy-based actually, right? I don't have a strategy for a category. I don't have a strategy for a commodity. I don't have a strategy on a pricing and negotiation, right? But when it comes to strategic procurement, there's a complete shift actually. The overall perspective got changed, right? If you look at strategic procurement, it's all about dealing with suppliers who are efficient, who are providing good quality, who are providing services and material on time. So overall supplier performance rating, the performance evaluation has gone through a lot of changes, and they look at different parameters and identify right suppliers and invest in those suppliers actually. When I say invest not in terms of money, invest in terms of giving demand, giving orders to the customer, invest in terms of looking at their process, and in terms of overall, I would say I have 3 suppliers who can provide the same material, right? I would go and say that actually get the cost, how do they arrive at their cost actually in terms of the material, in terms of the processes, what they do. And I can very well look at actually the suppliers, why their price is high, and if the supplier's price is high, I can very well tell them, hey, this is why your price is high. Give me more of a markup-based, margin-based price actually. So they incur their cost, keep a markup. There is nothing wrong in it because everybody is doing business for making margin, and you keep that markup and give me the service and material. That way, what happens is basically I do benchmarking of the cost of different suppliers. I make sure that actually I'm getting the best price, best quality, and best service, right? So that is how the strategic procurement works. And for making that happen, you definitely have to share the overall demand which the supplier can get in the future, right? That accordingly, they will do the investment. If I have an assured business, there is nothing wrong in for me to try and make my process more efficient and better and provide a better quality, right? It's all about trust as well as an assured business. And because of which I will be able to invest and I will be able to give you a better business, so that I will not have each and every time when I have a demand, I'm not going to go and ask every supplier actually, hey, give me an RFQ. The time to respond to the request is going to be drastically changed, right? Let's say if I have a demand in my organization, the procurement doesn't have to go and float an RFQ for 25 people, right? So he knows actually where the contract is, who is their supplier, where they get the best price, right? Straight away place an order, get the material in actually. So the overall time to respond is completely going to, it's drastically going to go down. And the quality, there is a continuous quality improvement, and I would say a confirmed quality which I'm going to get it. So overall disruption and impact in my business is going to go down, and that is how the strategic procurement works compared to the traditional procurement.
Interesting, very good insights there. Need-based versus a strategic way of procuring, and procuring in a digital way, right? Now everything is going digital nowadays, right? What is the role you think of digitization in procurement? Could you give us more elaborate view on that?
Sure. Actually, see, you cannot achieve strategic procurement as an initiative without having proper tools and techniques, right? So when you say strategic procurement, how does it work? First of all, think about an organization which is spread across multiple regions. They don't have an overall strategy in terms of data and stuff like that, right? Because if you have multi-company, multi-location kind of a scenario, people may negotiate company by company, right? Rather than having a consolidated view of their requirement and negotiating with the supplier. So data management, analytics, and the big data analysis is very key when it comes to achieving this initiative. So there should be a mechanism to have a complete consolidation of requirement and to get a complete view of my demand, and accordingly I can share that with my suppliers, so suppliers get a better view and they know actually what business they can expect, right? So and the other important thing is basically if any organization wants to take initiative in terms of spend management, right? Spend control or maverick spend. The only way to do that is basically by having a proper view on their spend. The spend cube is very important actually. Where do I spend? How much do I spend? With whom I'm spending, so on and so forth. If I have a full view, then I know my problem. Then I can find a solution for that, right? I know what to control, where to control, how to control, right? That is very important. So the spend management, savings, efficiency management, supplier evaluation, performance rating. so on and so forth can be achieved with proper analytics framework, analytics tool. And that is what is going to drive my decision making speed, right? That is one thing. The second thing is basically people want to get results immediately, right? It's a human nature. We want to have everything quick. If you buy a machine today, a laptop, and you may see that actually this is the fastest, but in 2 years down the line, you may see that actually this is the slowest, right? Because the performance speed is going to increase much more rapidly. So what happens is basically the same is the expectation in different organizations. If I have something, if I need something, I expect the procurement to react to that, respond to that much quickly, right? So overall, it is important to have a platform to have the entire, for both the buyers and suppliers to collaborate, or different stakeholders in the organization to collaborate and work. So that platform in terms of a supplier relationship management, more about the supplier portal, the supplier get to see a complete view. They can respond to the request what the buyer is making. The buyer get an overall view, and a complete visibility and auditability is being provided within different stakeholders, whether it is a CPO or CFO. They know exactly why I am placing order to this supplier, not the other suppliers, right? They know exactly why I'm shortlisting these suppliers, not the other suppliers. It is all that visibility is being provided. So the tools and techniques are very important. There are a lot of investment people being made on RPAs, robotic process automation, in terms of automating repetitive tasks, right? That is another area where I can do it, right? The other important thing is basically, if you also look at it, the IoTs and other kind of things actually, which helps organization to manage the digitization. It is all about a strategy, right? As we say, unless you have a foundation, you cannot implement these kind of techniques and tools. Actually, the foundation is important. That foundation could be a cloud strategy, and on top of it, actually, you have a procurement tool in terms of managing this end-to-end expectation from internal stakeholders as well as the suppliers, and providing a platform to collaborate and work without having any disruption in the overall process. And another important point, Pranav, this is what it makes big much more relevant, right? It's all about people started working from home. They don't get to see the colleagues' face. They don't have opportunity to talk to them, or they are not kind of sitting together and discussing and managing things. So it's all about people have a culture of working from home. For that, a tool should be there for them to work and perform their duties. Actually, it's all about, I would say, it is something which people started realizing. Hey, without having a proper tool, I will not be able to perform my activities in an efficient way.
Great, excellent. So data, as I say, is the new oil, right? And data digitization is all about data, lots of data, isn't it? But data can, should, and must be really utilized for gaining the actionable insights, and that's the purpose of data, isn't it? So could you elaborate a little bit more on in terms of the role analytics can play in a very elaborate way when it comes to procurement, Suresh?
Oh, sure, definitely. If you look at it, actually, Pranav, a couple of my customers actually had a serious challenge when this COVID started, right? They have certain suppliers. There's a trend actually. This is what we need to look at it, right? Earlier it was all about globalization. There, from a supply chain point of view, there is a trend or shift towards regionalization now, right? And what people wanted to do is, people always wanted to look at diversified supplier base, right? And they wanted to improve their resilience actually. So how do we do this diversified supplier base actually? Do I know all these suppliers? No. So the tool really helped actually organizations to identify either the supplier or different pockets of sourcing, with different areas of sourcing, and I will be able to improve my base. That second important thing is basically risk analysis, right? Again, risk from a supplier risk or all other risk, actually identify the risk, mitigate the risk. And without having proper tool, actually, it is hard for me to do a proper risk analysis, right? The other important thing is spend management, right? As I said earlier, the importance of spend management is big. Now I need to know where am I spending, what am I spending for me to act on it actually, right? The predictive analytics actually. And it's also helped me to identify which country I should be focusing more on, which currency I should be buying things in, right? Because a small fluctuation in a currency rate itself is going to increase or decrease my cost. So it is important for me to get all these statistics actually. The system should be able to predict, and system should be able to give proper analytics for me to act on it. So I will be able to take a more wise decision rather than doing a guesswork. There is no scope for guesswork today because the cost of guesswork is much higher, right? So I cannot afford that. And I need to have a clear and candid view in terms of what I can, how I can contribute to the overall cost reduction as well as improvement in the EBITDA, right?
Great, great. Your response is packed with so many insights out there, and I'm sure my audience is making notes because I definitely feel that you find it very insightful and something which you can really act upon. So Suresh, now let me get to some of the specifics, okay? I want to know about a few industry examples, where strategic sourcing has been brought to play for enhanced performance. So, and I want to talk about two industries here in particular. One is the EPC industry, and the second one is hospitality. Could you give us some of the use cases and examples from these two industries? How they're benefiting?
Oh, sure, Pranav, and both the industries are very close to my heart, right? Because this is an industry where I've been working for years, actually. Let's take hospitality industry as such, right? If you look at it, there are two perspectives. One is basically from a owner's perspective, because that is, he's the building owner, he's the property owner. The other view is basically more of a management company, the brand which manages the property, right? The perspective and the overall requirement for both are slightly different actually. From a management company perspective, it is all about the daily F&B request and other things which they manage and the indirect procurement and things like that actually. And mostly it is all about F&B procurement. F&B itself, there are two things. One is basically more of a perishable item like fruits, vegetables, let's say dairy products, meat, and so on and so forth. The second thing is basically dry goods and other things which I can keep it, the gift items and so on and so forth, right? Other items. So if you look at it, and most of the hotels these days, the big chains, they are not maintaining inventory for these kind of items. They believe that it's waste of time. The cost of inventory is much lower than the amount of resources you need in terms of managing them, right? So if you look at it, actually, what they do is they have a daily request. It's more of a market list, which they generate from the chef or the chef party generates that actually. That in turn goes through an approval process. Finally, it gets consolidated, place the order to a supplier where we have a contract existing. That is where the strategic procurement really works. The strategic procurement, the overall purpose is having a contract with someone who can supply regularly the materials to me, so I don't have to negotiate each and every time. That is how they work as well. So I have the demand, I take this demand, consolidate it because I have different kitchens and different central kitchens coming. Demand is coming from all over. I consolidate it. I pretty much place an order and get the delivery on it. That is something an ongoing process. Definitely, it is important for me to look at the cost. It is important for me to have the budget, so on and so forth. But if you look at from a owner's perspective, it is all about capital equipment purchases, right? It's all about actually the building other improvements and stuff like that. It's all about OE items purchases, so on and so forth. So it is again strategic procurement play a clear role. They know what do they need to purchase, what is the kind of budget they have for year on year, so they can very well share their the supplier, the pie they are going to have from the overall spend. And again, the strategic procurement works, and the tool can really help actually. Especially what happens is people wanted to know what they are spending, the overall impact on that spend is what is key, right? That is something which people can do, and that is where the tool like a procurement tool, especially source to procure kind of a tool, add value to the organization. If you look at EPC as an industry, EPC is an industry which really struggles. There is a demand on the unit is going down because of the current market situation, and everybody wants to cut corners or cut costs, and that is what people want to do. And you can't cut cost when it comes to by getting rid of people, because that will have a overall long-term impact. So people wanted to do all other alternative source of revenue deduction. That is the best way, is basically cut down your overall spend. And again, you cannot stop buying it. You have to buy it, but buy the best, more efficient way, buy the best thing. That you don't have a cost of quality. You don't have the cost of higher price, so on and so forth. So when they have multiple projects and site running, they have a huge capability in terms of forecasting demand as well as consolidating the overall demand, so they get the benefit of economy of scale, right? So that is where the EPC comes in. So if you look at both these industries, actually there is a clear, I would say, that actually room for improvement when it comes to the procurement. This is one area where which is completely left unattended, I would say, by most of the organizations, and people are paying a price for this actually by having an overall impact on their bottom line and EBITDA.
Great, great. Thank you very much for that response. But I would argue, why is it now? Why is it now a good time? Is it a good time now, or is it a good time when the volume starts coming and the market starts to get better?
Hey, there's no better time than this, right? Because this is the best time. The reason is, this is now we need to have proper control on the spend. This is when we can implement such change. This is when we need to make our process more lean and efficient. Because the only way I can do that is basically adopting a product, a tool which is built on industry best practices. I get an opportunity to compare, benchmark my process versus the industry best practices, adopt the lean, more efficient process, make my process more agile, and indirectly the benefit I'm going to gain it. And also, this is now people are not too busy. This is when people have to focus on getting that tools ready, so we are prepared for tomorrow. This is when they have to compare with the other organization who are successful, their competitors, and make sure that actually why they are successful. The reason why they are successful, they had a clear digital transformation strategy.
Yep.
A lot of survey and analysis when it comes to how the digital transformation is going to help organizations. It clearly states almost 16% improvement on your overall profit, and 26% let's say revenue growth, and almost 12% market valuation improvement is going to happen if you have a clear digital transformation strategy, and if you are able to make it implemented.
Great. I think you made a very good business case for a strategic sourcing tool, right? So, look, quite insightful and thought-provoking in terms of why the platform itself. Now, I would like to move on to the point of what is Merlin, right? What are its capabilities and its USPs, you know? So could you tell us a view about the Merlin platform itself and its USPs?
Hey, Merlin in the vaccine. Merlin is the vaccine for the COVID, right? I would say that.
I love it.
Right? Merlin is the solution, the medicine for the problem what we have stated earlier, right?
Tell me more.
The problem what we have today, we have an EBITDA hit, we have a financial turbulence, we have a cash flow issue, we have a supply chain disruption, we are not able to do manufacturing properly, so on and so forth. We are not able to improve customer satisfaction, customer experience, because we are not able to deliver on time. So how do we address this particular concern? Addressing this concern, one of thing, I am not saying that actually this will solve the entire problem, right? At least to take an initiative in digital transformation. At least let us look at a low-hanging fruits where we get an immediate return on investment with very low total cost of ownership. That is what Merlin solves. Merlin provides. Merlin is a source to procure, including expediting capability. It provides a platform for people to collaborate and work. It provides a platform to do strategic procurement. It provides a platform for people to work from home. It provides a platform for people to react or respond to the request from their stakeholders much quickly. It provides a platform for them to cut down their overall spend, identify where do they spend. It provides a platform for them to control and reduce the maverick spend, right? Overall, Merlin is a strategic procurement tool which helps organizations to automate the end-to-end procurement process, right from onboarding a supplier to end-to-end getting into a contract and procuring things, as well as analyzing what procurement they have done and why did they do that, rate the supplier, do a continuous improvement actually, as well as make sure the material is received or services is received on time. There is a huge focus in most of the big organization on a concept called SIFOT. It's called supply in full on time. So that is what people are looking at. It is important for organizations to start focusing on that. That is what Merlin provides.
Interesting, interesting. So that's a lot of promise there, actually, Suresh, in terms of the platform capabilities. But tell us about a live example where you have perhaps helped a customer in solving through the platform.
Hey, I have a lot of examples, but I will talk about one biggest example actually, which is a live example for us. We have a customer in US. They are one of the biggest automotive manufacturer, close to 5.5 billion dollar turnover. Their annual procurement is close to 2.5 billion, right?
2.5 billion.
$2.5 billion worth procurement they do through Merlin. When I stepped in there, they were looking for implementing a procurement solution. The good news was they were aware of their problem. That was the good news, right? Because they knew what do they need. They know that actually what the illness was. The only thing is basically we have to prescribe a medicine, right? So it is not that we don't have to do the diagnosis, right? That is the good news. So they knew that. We went in there. We said they tried to implement different other solutions. They tried paracetamol. They tried something else actually. None of those things actually could cure their illness, right? That is where we stepped in and we offered them Merlin, and we talked about Merlin, right? Today, I would say the $2.5 billion procurement is being done through Merlin from 16 different countries and overall 20 plus factories actually. A single procurement tool is being implemented, though they don't have an enterprise strategy when it comes to their ERP and the basic platform, right? The biggest challenge what they had is basically they used to get an inquiry from a sales. The procurement team were struggling to respond to that on timely basis. Again, it used to take 4 to 5 days. The procurement person couldn't handle more than 6 or 7 inquiries in a day. One of their major requests was basically number of response to be increased, the time to be reduced from 4 days to a day, right? So all sort of techniques which you need to implement and apply can be done in terms of achieving that goal. They also want to have a clear savings target. Let's say that actually savings target year on year. Please bear in mind that the amount of money you are saving from procurement is straight away bringing down your overall cost of your material, as well as you will be able to have a better bottom line and EBITDA, right? The beauty is they were able to achieve their savings target, and that itself was given them millions of dollars in terms of addition to a bottom line, right? That is something which is there. The next important thing is basically visibility was the key, right? The CFO, CPOs were not having visibility. Why did you select a supplier? Why didn't you select someone else, right? It's a question always been asked. And the other question is basically, I want you to know how much do you spend and where do I stand in terms of saving versus spend versus so on and so forth. I was not able to answer any of such questions, and that is what Merlin is helping them to do it. I will give you a simple example. The payment terms is one thing actually during COVID situation. Every supplier started asking them, right? They said actually, hey, can you reduce the payment terms from 60 to 30? And people literally the answer is basically yes or no, right? If it's yes, why it is yes? If it is no, why it is no? No, I know the answer, right? Because I don't want to give anything more to them. If it is yes, why it is yes? Then people may question me actually. There should be some statistics in terms of answering that question in yes. So what is going to be the impact that 30 days is going to make in my overall cash position? How much more I'm going to lose money, right? So that statistics can be provided only through proper tools and systems. That's what Merlin has provided. Normally, it used to take 2 months of exercise in terms of dealing with all the suppliers. Now it takes hardly 1 week for them to negotiate that and send it through the full approval process and get it approved and communicating to supplier. Supplier is very happy because the decisions is much quicker. Rather than I ask you something, you come back to me after 3 months, right? It is better for you to say yes or no in the beginning itself. That is one of the important things, and that really help actually in terms of managing that is another important point. The other issue is they used to have almost 50,000 plus suppliers. One of the initiative from the management was to bring down the number of suppliers from 50,000 to a reasonable number, right? Because that is how the strategic procurement works. Now the amount of suppliers they are dealing with is 5,000, almost I would say number of suppliers they have brought it down. to a large extent. Actually, that is another advantage what they have, I would say, by implementing Merlin as a procurement tool.
Interesting, interesting. So when I asked you the question, you talked about a very large customer, like almost $2.5 billion being spent on procurement. Is Merlin only for the larger enterprise?
Hey, wonderful question, Pranav. See, Merlin is a tool for organization who do procurement. It could be one buyer organization. It could be a 100-buyer organization. The beauty and return on investment may vary based on actually the amount of procurement you do, right? But the application is meant for any organization who wants to digitalize or automate the end-to-end procurement function, right? It is meant for everybody. That scalability is being achieved actually.
Right. So are you saying this is going to be right from SMB all the way to larger enterprise, yeah?
Absolutely. If you look at some statistics, Pranav, almost 85% of the SMBs are still relying on spreadsheets for doing procurement.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
Our focus is completely, I would say, that actually the SMBs, the larger organization, they have achieved certain level of maturity. But the biggest challenge today is basically in the mid-market, the SMBs. That is where we are focusing in a big way.
Great. Now I'm going to come back to the same old customer you mentioned about. And could you tell me, how much time did it take for you to implement the solution? And secondly, how long is the solution working on that client's premises? It's been how long since it's been running?
See, it took almost around 6 to 8 months, I would say, for this implementation. There is a reason for it, because they have they didn't have an enterprise strategy, right? They have 16 different or 20 different plans, and each plan had their own master data. So consolidation was a huge issue, or having a single platform was a huge issue because of different part numbers and item codes actually. So that mapping took longer than expected from their side. That was the reason for the delay. Otherwise, the implementation, I would say, overall time frame is much limited, right? So the beauty is basically Merlin has got an integration with different ERP systems. That's how it helps organization to have a seamless flow of information.
Great, excellent. Okay, interesting. Great. So with that, my other question is, I'm sure, I'm already in love with the solution, hence a partnership, right? But for those in the audience who would like to benefit from this strategic sourcing solution, what's your advice? Where do we get started?
Yeah, I would say that actually, first of all, it is important for them to have a strategy, right? The strategy drives the whole things. We need to assess the maturity in our organization to achieve that digital transformation. But I can guarantee one thing: every organization, I would say, is a low-hanging fruit. The area where we can implement this is basically the procurement area. So start with procurement, irrespective of whether you have an ERP strategy or not. Even if you don't have that foundation, you can start with procurement. If you have the foundation well and good, you can integrate with that as well. So you reach next level of digitalization, right? Digital transformation. So I would say that actually look at arrive at a strategy. And for those who are attending this meeting, especially from the IT department, right? The digital transformation is no longer a wish list. It is something which you have to achieve it. That is going to decide whether you are going to be in the business or out of the business, right? So digital transformation is no longer a choice. It is an absolute necessity for the organization. So when you are doing that, I would say if you have reached certain level of maturity, go on, try to do procurement automation is one of the key things. If you don't have that, still you can go ahead and do the procurement. So that will clearly give you a clear return on investment without having too much of total cost of ownership and without having too much of pain. Now, overall process, business process re-engineering is going to be time consuming for many of the proprietary companies, actually, especially in our region. So that is where you can have a slow adoption of, I would say, digital transformation. That is how you start with actually. Procurement is one of the areas where you can do it immediately, you can act on it, get a better results. So naturally, people will come and ask you, right, to roll out that into other areas as well, because the result is going to talk what you want to achieve in the coming years.
Right, interesting. Right now, when customers are looking to kind of have this, have the strategy, is there a role that Merlin can play, the Merlin's team can play in helping customer uncover or discover if the tool is the right tool for them?
Hey, Pranav, actually, probably it is a intelligent or brilliant point you brought in, right? Actually, many of the customers, I've been talking to many supply chain consultancy organizations in US and Europe, right? And one of the things what they said is they go and do a supply chain audit and supply chain advisory to different organizations, actually. Now, what they do is they do and look at their spend, actually. And they said generally it takes approximately a month in terms of preparing the spend cube and looking at what is the spend, how much is the spend, and so on and so forth. It is not an easy data, right? Without data, you cannot talk much. So that is when they asked us, hey, can you have only the analytics piece of it actually in the beginning to our customer, then we expand the system to other areas. I said, why not? Because Merlin has got a capability to implement things modular basis, right? You can have only analytics piece at the beginning. You implement that, understand your problem, try to bring in a supplier onboarding process. That is another key challenge for people, right? The visibility is not there. So next you go and say that actually the RFQ, RFI sourcing capability is required. When you mature to a certain level, you say that actually I need an e-auction capability. I want the entire organization to do e-requisitioning. So you have capability to do implementation in piece by piece rather than going and changing the entire thing in a day, right? Rome is not built in a day. In the same way, actually, you don't have to do the digital transformation achieved on the same day. You can do it piece by piece. That is where the organization, the Merlin as a product helps you, and Inserito and Rainbrew can help you in terms of achieving your overall digital transformation objective.
Right. One last question on that piece, Suresh. Who are the stakeholders within an organization to consider the strategic sourcing piece?
I would say the biggest role who are going to play is basically Chief Procurement Officer, Procurement Director, or the Chief Financial Officer, because both the parties and the buyers definitely and definitely IT is another role. IT has got a lot of complaints related question and issues these days. Procurement buyers want to respond to the request much quickly, and they want to achieve compliance and transparency. The Chief Procurement Officer wanted to improve the overall process actually in the organization and adopt the standard industry best practices. CFO is interested in, I would say that actually, with a better cash flow, better rapid on investment, and lower total cost of ownership, and overall complaints and adherence to the process what they have actually. So these are all the different stakeholders, I would say. Needless to say that actually suppliers are going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries because they get visibility. The chances of errors are going to go down. Visibility can be provided, transparency can be achieved. So these are all the stakeholders, and all of them are going to get benefited through a product like Merlin.
Excellent, excellent. And also the new role of the Chief Digital Officer, I think they also have a role to play in having this part of the digital transformation strategy, right?
Absolutely. I would say that actually no more IT. It is all about digital, right? The Chief Digital Officer.
No, I would undermine the role of IT, but definitely, with the Chief Digital Officer is definitely coming in play. They have a lot to consider when you look at digitization strategies. Look, Suresh, I can go on and on, but I can ask a few more questions today. I'm a little bit more enlightened about the solution, but I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna look for questions from our audience. I'm sure we have some. Is that okay, Suresh? You want to make any other point before I move on there?
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine, Pranav. The only point what I was trying to make is many of our customers actually, if you look at the IT landscape, or I would say that actually the IT team, they have already transformed to the IT manager, or I would say VP IT is completely transformed to as a Chief Digital Officer. That transformation is already started taking place in many of the Western countries. Actually, I think it is yet to come in and take a serious, I would say, we started taking seriously, yet to be taking that actually, but otherwise you can see that it's happening in other part of the world.
Great, thank you for that insight. Right, so I've got a question here, and that's coming from Aditya, and the question is, what, according to you, are the most important features to look for in an e-procurement solution?
Sorry, Pranav, can you just repeat that question once again, Pranav?
Yeah, sure. The question is coming from Aditya, And the question is, what, according to you, are the most important features to look for in e-procurement solutions?
Okay, good question. And this is what exactly
Yeah.
I've explained a bit early in terms of overall what do you need actually. First of all, I need to know what is wrong, right? That is why the entire analytics piece of it is going to help actually. So Merlin provide a built-in analytics platform which helps you in terms of looking at what's wrong and how you are going to act and what you're going to do, right? And on top of it, actually, entire supplier onboarding process, right? The end-to-end requisitioning process in the organization. You can have the full-fledged RFI, RFQ, supplier portal in terms of response, and you can have a platform to collaborate and work and have real-time communication done. You have a complete kind of e-auction capability if required for bulk purchases. You have indirect procurement, especially the contingent workforce management. All these different capabilities are part and parcel of it when you look at actually modules and functions. I would say what you should expect, not the modules, but overall, one solution for your current crisis and a problem is what Merlin offers.
Right. Thank you, Suresh. That's good. We got a question from Bala, and the question is, can you explain to us the catalog procurement?
Oh, absolutely. The catalog, there are multiple things, right? When you can have your internal catalog, you can also have your vendor catalog actually. So Merlin can deal with both the things actually. You can have your catalogs, your own catalogs maintained, and people can make requisitions based on the catalog. You can have vendor catalogs actually, and you can also use vendor catalogs in terms of making requisitions and placing orders. So Merlin supports the catalog management, and that is something which is part and parcel of it.
Right. Thank you, Suresh. Another question that's coming from Varshni. And the question is, what are the features to look for in a solution for direct sourcing? Does Merlin have any specific features to enhance direct sourcing experience?
Hey, good point, actually. See, it's important for people to know what direct sourcing and indirect sourcing, right? Direct sourcing is all about you buy something, you make something and sell it, or buy something and sell it to someone else, actually. That is more about direct sourcing, right? Or the components or raw materials or any of those things are direct sourcing. Indirect sourcing is all about actually managing contingent workforce, the service level purchases actually, and SOW-based purchasing. That is what services. Now, indirect procurement. Now, what happens is basically when it comes to direct procurement, there is a huge need in terms of some organization where there is R&D and all of that kind of stuff, where organization go and new products is being produced. They need an interface with PLM, PDM kind of a systems where they do a design and the entire bill of material is being pushed into Merlin. And straight away, what they do is basically they go and float an RFQ in terms of getting a price of each component. So you have a should be cost actually. So what could be the cost of this particular design, right? That is very important. And based on the cost, they keep fine tuning it to reach till they reach a certain level actually. So, and the other thing is basically all sort of manufacturing companies, engineering companies, right? EPC companies. They all have a lot of direct procurement actually where interface to, let's say, with the PLM, PDM systems, with the entire catalog within the application and the complexity around that actually completely been done through direct procurement. And that is one area where people may have challenge with many other applications in the market. Merlin is completely focused. I would say that actually a lot of focus is being given on direct procurement when it comes to Merlin and the capabilities around that.
Great. Thank you, Suresh. We got a question from Jay, and the question is, also, can you give some insights on vendor risk management process through this tool?
Sure. Merlin is a tool which helps organization to shortlist vendor, select vendor, onboard vendor, manage vendor. When you say vendor management, it's a big topic, right? It is not only just getting a vendor onboarded, managing that vendor throughout its life cycle, right? In terms of gray listing or blacklisting a supplier, performance rating of a supplier, actually, extending the supplier to a new location, new territory, a new product or category. You can say that actually taking off a supplier from there, changing a payment term of a supplier, any complaints related updates, actually, any documents related updates, all the entire life cycle can be managed through Merlin. That is the beauty of Merlin actually. And it is all done through a specific supplier portal and which is completely user friendly. And that ease of use is being provided in terms of getting information, a easy way to the application, and in turn they can share the information with their buyer community.
Right. Thank you, Suresh. We got a question. I got quite a few questions there, so you got to rush a little bit. We got a question from Shiraj, and his question is procurement digitization, the benefits realization or ROI can be achieved in how much time on an average for a small and medium organization?
Hey, it's a good question actually. We asked Pranav, as we know, we have done series of webinars on ROI calculation, right? We have developed a tool in terms of how do we calculate ROI in an organization when you approach a new product. Normally, I would say the organization, the large organization which I talked about earlier, they have got the return on investment in 8 months actually, right? We ourselves were a bit scared to report that in the beginning when we have seen that figure, but we didn't have a choice other than reporting that. I would say that actually depends on your current setup. I would say without knowing that actually is very difficult for me to answer that question. But I would say that actually less than a year, you will be able to get the ROI very easily actually.
Okay, interesting. Very good. One question from my side on this point of the ROI and the tool. How can the audience, see this tool? Where can we find this tool? Is it something which you made available online? Is it something which the audience has to get in touch with us to find? What's the best way to reach out to this tool?
It's a consulting exercise, Pranav. They will have to reach out to you or our sales team or marketing team in terms of showing an interest to work on that. Then we will do a consulting exercise in terms of working with them and giving and preparing a report on their ROI and TCO.
Does consulting come free?
Depends, yeah.
Sure. Obviously, depends on the scope of the work, right? Right. Next question is from Bharatwaj. The question is, can Merlin solution be integrated with our homegrown enterprise system as well? And how can the integration be done?
Good. See, Merlin, as I said earlier, it has got an integration layer, right? It has got an out-of-box integration with SAP, Oracle, and other different products, Epic kind of products. But if you have a homegrown system, I believe it helps us. It is on latest technology, or at least something which is there is a compatibility available, right? So Merlin has got that middleware. That middleware helps us to do integration using different methods actually with the ERP system. So Merlin middleware, the interfacing tool helps you to interface with different applications, and that is something which we provide as part of the implementation as well.
Right. Okay. I'm going to take just a couple of more questions now. So the question is from Arunajalam. The question is, are basic IT skills sufficient for using the system? What kind of training is needed on the solution to end users? And would the suppliers need any training for using the system as well?
There is no additional IT skills. Procurement is procurement. People are expert in doing procurement. Actually, what they do is, rather than doing that in a spreadsheet, they do it in the system, right? There is no additional IT skills required. Actually, the only thing is there are some tools available in terms of preparing your own analytics and informations. We normally provide that training during the implementation. And supplier, there is a self-paced course for the suppliers to understand what they do, how they do, and all that kind of things. So that is something which helps them. And on top of it, Rainbrook has got an academy, right? Rainbrook Academy provide a training on different components and different products. There is an online training available on that as well. So there are multiple ways of people getting trained. To answer that question in a simple way, there is no additional IT skills required. There's no complex training required. It is a simple tool, and they can work with it.
Right. Okay. Okay. There's a question I got here. I think it's an interesting question as well, and it says it asks about how is data security taken care in Merlin, and how are user roles and access rights managed?
See, the data security is you can pretty much the data is fully encrypted. Either we have our own encryption mechanism, or the customer have a specific encryption key. We will use that and encrypt the data as well. So encryption data is completely encrypted, so there is no data security issue. And the other thing is basically the data where it is residing, right? For Middle East, the data is residing in Middle East itself. It is not anywhere outside. But when it comes to Europe, the data is residing within Europe actually. So that is the flexibility being provided. So the data is being completely encrypted. When it comes to roles and access rights, it is completely, there is a role-based access. You can create your own roles, assign access, security can be provided, auditability can be provided, which is all part and parcel of the system. Is a complete surveillance Oxley or any other auditing requirement or security compliance, segregation of duties, all those different things can be managed through Merlin.
Great, thank you, Suresh. We got one more question from Nivita, and that question is: we have suppliers across the world, diverse range of suppliers across the globe, right? Can this solution really work for such kind of a diverse set of suppliers across the globe? Will Merlin really be able to help?
Absolutely, because the earlier customer I've talked about, they have customers, suppliers across the globe. Actually, they have all part of the world. Actually, they have suppliers. And Merlin, as I said, the Supplier Portal is a very simple tool. Actually, it is not very complex. It is not something where people need to get trained and a long adoption time is going to be taken. No, it is a simple tool. It is going to work. We are confident about it, and we have
Great,
experience.
thank you. Thank you, Suresh. I'm very conscious of time, so I think I'll have to stop asking questions to you. But thank you, Suresh. Really appreciate it. Thanks for taking all my questions, taking my audience questions, and I also want to thank the audience for coming in today. I know you came not only from the region but also from North America and Europe, which is interesting. But I really appreciate your time. I'm sure you found the information very useful, insightful, something which you want to go back and think and perhaps take an action on. If you do choose to kind of take an action on what you've seen today, then we're very happy to receive your call. You can reach out to us at inserato.com or at Renberke. So thank you again, and I wish you a great day ahead. Keep safe. Suresh, any last words from you?
Okay, thanks a lot, Pranav, for all the wonderful questions, and thanks to the audience for listening this particular webinar. And it's all about the problem what we have actually, irrespective of the geographical location we are residing. The problem is a problem, and Merlin is a solution for that problem. Thank you.
And I saw you. I heard you saying that Merlin is a vaccine for the POC pandemic, right? POC problem. So, well, actually, that's an interesting one. On that note, thank you again, everyone, and have a good day ahead. Cheers for now.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye bye.